All right.
John.
Hi, how are you, Natalie?
Good. Welcome to the What Not Why, our newly named podcast, which is kind of fun and hard to remember at this
Yeah.
moment. But I want to invite you to tell our audience who you are, whatever you feel is important, and we'll just get to explore more of that in this conversation today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Natalie. I was really looking forward to this, even though I've been really nervous leading up to this point. So a bit about me. So my name is John Whitbread. How would I describe myself? I'm an engineer at the core of me. I remember from a very early age, 10 years old. I remember that very distinctly. I knew I wanted to be an engineer. However, that was not my calling in the first, few years of after leaving school. It took me until the age of 30 to realize that I could do that, and to commit to that and make that happen. So at age 36, I graduated engineering school
Oh, wow.
and joined the defense industry for 24 years. And about 3 years ago, I made a decision to change industries from the defense industry to the space industry because I remember as a young child staring up at the stars, wanting to help people to go to space. That was my fundamental calling when I was young. So I transitioned into the space industry last year. Actually, I spent a year preparing for that transition, and then I fully transitioned into the space industry. And oddly enough, I've ended up as a team lead and on a team developing Canada's lunar utility vehicle rover for the moon for launch in 2033.
Well, is
I can
that all,
feel,
John? I mean,
yeah, so,
I'm not sure where to go with this.
yeah, right? Yeah. So
That's
anyway,
incredible.
and I'd love to share a bit of
Congratulations.
how that happened because I think others. I'm always sending the message, you can do what you set your mind to. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this story and
Mm.
make up their mind and commit and achieve something that they've always wanted to do.
Well, so this is going to be just so fun to explore this with you. I want to first say that, believe it or not, I'm going to say every, but maybe it's 9 on 10 guest tells me how nervous they are to come on to the
Yeah.
podcast, which I think is just beautiful and also fun. So you're not alone. And also, I'd love to hear a little bit more about that gap and starting engineering at 30 and what that was like what led up to that decision and the gap.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I never I didn't do well in school in the early years. What really set me back is I came from an English school system. When I left England, I was about to go into high school. When I came to Canada, they said, you got to go back to grade 5, got to start over
Mhm.
again. And
Oh my
that
goodness.
set the tone for my early years. It set the path for my early years. I didn't graduate high school. And so I left high school at 18 years of age after talking to my parents about how I'm going to actually, change my path. And my father, bless his heart, he said, I think you need to do something, a trade, work in a restaurant. I think that's the path for you because school, you haven't been able to, be successful at school. And so I filled those years, 10 years, with owning two businesses. And the mind boggling thing is, I didn't even recognize that as anything particularly special. But on the back end of that, when I was thinking about where I wanted to go with my second business, I realized um, I could do something that was quite unique that very few people achieve, which is setting up and running a business. They weren't big, but they made me a living, right? And
Mhm.
then I realized when I was talking to a friend of mine, um, that she said one thing. She said, "Why don't you just take the first step towards engineering? What's stopping you from doing that, given all that you've accomplished so far?" And at that point in time, I was ready to ignore, what I'd been told in the past, ready to let go of my lack of accomplishment at school, and willing to build on what I'd already built, which is a capability to do something, right, in a successful way. And I committed to going back to high school. So I spent 2 years as an adult high schooler, right, leading
Amazing.
to
Yeah.
getting into university, Carleton University, where I spent 6 years, including internships and working 50% of the time in engineering, to get my degree. And once
Wow.
I completed, I realized anything is possible. So
What do you think is your friend said, what's stopping you? And I think that a lot of people hesitate. A lot of people want to go back to school. I mean, I went and got my master's at the age of, well, I just graduated, so 51. But, so what is it?
congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, thanks. What is it about the hesitancy? What do you think it is? For what was it for you that you broke through that?
I think we build up a perception of ourselves based on our own perceived limitations, and based on what others tell you you're capable of. Um, and for me, I firmly believed in those things. Because I observed what I had accomplished, right, or didn't accomplish in my early years, and built up this model of myself as not being capable. What I didn't realize at the time is that my struggles with school had nothing to do with my capacity to actually be successful at school. And what broke me through that is the observation that I could build a business,
Mm,
sell that business, build another business. I had to pivot in that business, and I pivoted successfully. And then I decided to let go of that business. I could do that really well. And once I realized that, like, what else is holding me back? What else have I thought I couldn't do that I could actually do, and that I would want to do in the future, if you know what I mean, right?
mm,
So I fundamentally questioned my limitations at that point. Looking back on my successes and what others had observed about me, looking back on those successes, and thought, maybe my struggles with school has nothing to do with school itself. It has something to do with me, my attention span, my capacity to commit. And so I made up my mind to, well, A, commit, and B, school is rote learning, right? That was never me. Now, that was never me. I couldn't deal with that. But I made a commitment to rote learning, meaning I made a commitment to do school the way everybody wanted me to do school. And when I did that, school changed fundamentally for me.
mm.
And in fact, in university, I successfully made it through that period. So I hope that answers the question.
Oh, it does, and I think that what I'm hearing too, and I feel like that's what happened to me too. You focus on your strengths at first because that's where you need to start. If you're not doing well in school, and your father's saying try a trade, and the fact is, I'm not feeling like I'm capable of being in school, and then doing what you feel is your strength, and then proof starts to show itself. Yes, this is your strength. Oh, success. Oh, momentum, right? Dopamine, motivation. All those things start to happen, which then give you confidence to say, well, if I can do this, then what else can I do? And that's
Yeah.
sort of what happened to me too, right? Like, my business success showed me that, oh, maybe I'm capable of more than what I realized. Because school wasn't exactly my favorite place to be. In fact, I was the kind of person that worked really hard to get what I needed to get where I wanted to go. And it didn't come easy for me at all. And it
Yeah.
meant hours and hours of frustration and sometimes pivoting and and different roads to get to where I wanted to go. And it sounds like, you're talking about pivots. You're talking about the roads less traveled maybe by people who otherwise would give up at the first sign of challenge or defeat. And so I just love that story. And now you're an engineer and now you're moved into the defense world. How did that happen?
Into the then I moved into the defense world. Well, here's the funny thing, and I have no idea why I ignored this aspect of me. Since age 10, I was working in my father's electronics lab to develop electronic systems. I was one of the early users of integrated circuits. I was developing my own little test systems to test electronics. I was doing this as a hobby part time, but I never saw that as accomplishing anything except, having a hobby. And so when I got to university, and after that first year of university, I applied for a job in the defense industry for the summer. And I landed a job, funnily enough, in hardware development as an intern for that summer. And during that summer, I was assigned a number of tasks, debugging complex electronic circuits, building wire harnesses. And that summer, I built a lab capable of building wire harnesses for our engineering team. And again, I thought that was nothing particularly special, but I saw a gap where we weren't getting the wire harnesses that we needed. We didn't have the test facilities we needed to do our work in real time, right? We always had to book things, book someone else's systems and work on them. So that's better engineering effort that summer. Then someone came to me and said, "Hey, I heard you built a wire harness lab. I've been having trouble with this harness for several months now. Can you rebuild this for me? Because I need it next week." So we took it into the lab, we rebuilt it, we ran tests on it, we delivered it, and the harness worked the first time.
Huh.
That person came back and said, "Do you want a job?" And so I started in September of that year while I was in my second year university, working in the defense industry half time throughout
Oh,
my,
wow.
my engineering degree itself. So talking about, I mean, it was clear I was prepared to take on this role and prepared to be an engineer, but somehow I neglected all of that preparation that was not school preparation. I didn't see it as valid. Boy, did I learn a huge lesson for that. The things you do on the side can prepare you for new careers. And that's exactly what I did to pivot into the space industry.
That's pretty incredible. You know, I mean, I picture like Steve, what's his name? Steve Wozniak, the Steve Jobs sidekick that nobody talks about.
Right.
He's the one who had the real, like, I don't know, as far as I understand the story, he was doing all the boards. Um, that is really inspirational. I have to say for me, but also I'm sure for people listening who want to try something new or pivot their career or explore a passion and make turn it into a career.
Yeah.
Even young people who are undecided about their future. Like I was reading your LinkedIn, your about me section, and you at the end you invite young people to talk to you about career advice. And
Yeah.
if you're a young person, and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I want my daughter to speak to you. She's a math girl. She's applying to McGill math program, applied math, and she's not sure where she wants to go. And I always tell her, figure out what you're good at, and then figure out what you love. And I
Yeah.
feel like too many people are trying to find something they love, or a lot of people say, "What's your passion?" and make it work for you. But I think first you've got to figure out what are you talented at? What are you really good at? Where's your strength base? And then build from there. And, I feel like it's a more grounded approach, especially for a young person. Maybe not when you're older, maybe passion is maybe more important. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have very specific thoughts. So I do mentor. I have the opportunity to mentor many students trying to transition from university, well, actually from high school to university on career choices, and from university into professional careers. So I'm really blessed with people coming to me and talking through this to help them through their decision making. What I've learned is that you're not going to find something that you're passionate about. And what I mean there is your entire career, your responsibilities, your job. There's always elements of that you're going to hate. And there's often an element that you absolutely love and motivates you to do the rest of the things. So I don't advise people to find something you're passionate about. I advise people to find a role where you belong, where there's an element that really drives you, that you're really passionate about. Find a job that contains an element that you're really passionate about.
Mm.
And that changes people's perspectives because it doesn't have to be all encompassing passion. Then there's a second piece to this, which is the job is never going to fulfill you. If you focus on that, you're going to be highly disappointed. So what other things in life do you need to be fulfilled? Okay. And add that to what you do. And that's exactly what I did. That's what led to the space industry pivot. Is those things became dominant in my life, right? And really prove that's where I belong, right? Where I could provide value, where I was really passionate about. So my hobbies turned into my passion and what I wanted to do for my career. The last thing I'll note is, and this is a really off, but is proven so true again and again and again. I ask students, what gets you into trouble? Because it's often those things that people do that come from their heart that get them in trouble with others, that are their real passions. So that's what I ask people. What gets you in trouble in life, right? What gets you in trouble at work?
I'm not answering that.
I would love to hear.
Oh my god.
There's
Ugh.
always a thread of something in that answer that people suddenly realize, oh my God, I do this repeatedly. I love doing that. Right.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I think for me it's I love to see the potential of an idea flourish, and not every idea will flourish, but the fact that I love to start things and dive in without a lot of like, you know, perfectionism, let's call it. uh, I I dive in, and sometimes I have people pulling the reins, going, "Well, oh, you didn't think of this, you didn't think of that," and that's
Yeah.
good because I have those people around
See?
me. But and it's I hope it's fun. Not all the time, I have to say, because then I create projects and stuff. But and so that's the things that get me in trouble is, launching, stopping, restarting, pivoting, like that kind of messiness, I suppose I'm going to call it,
I
which
call
is
it
also
exploration.
pardon?
I call it exploration.
Exploration. There you go. It's
Yeah.
good. It's exploration. I feel like I'm always curiosity doesn't cut it. It's more about like I want the experience of it.
Yeah.
And then I want to feel the like that I'm always chasing that I don't know, stimulus of oh my god, I could do it. I did it. Like I did it. And then of
I
course
completely get that.
that happens and then I have to find the next one. So
Right.
it's yeah.
Roller coaster. The what gets me in trouble and has always got me in trouble. And this really set the stage for how I wanted to pivot and where I wanted to pivot. Was I'm very people focused,
Mm.
and that shouldn't get you in trouble. But I've always been told throughout my career, you shouldn't focus so much on people. People are not your concern. Executing the work is the concern. And I get their perspectives. I
Say,
understand
oh. Hold on a second, John. Were you actually told those words?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You should not focus on people so much. You know? And and like oh I mean, you shouldn't coach. Stop mentoring. Um, those things got me in trouble all the time. And so, what did I do in response to that? I took those things outside of my career, outside
Mhm.
of my job, and I utilized those elsewhere. And I found that incredibly fulfilling. And then I worked to try and influence the culture within work to allow these things to happen. And what I didn't recognize is that maybe I just didn't fit.
Mhm.
And I love influencing cultures. I love shifting perspectives. I love moving us towards a better place, right? And eventually, there came a moment where I said to myself, I don't feel right here anymore. I don't feel like I fit here anymore. And I saw the culture changing. I saw it starting to meet me halfway. But by that point in time, I thought, can I do better? Do I fit
Ah.
elsewhere? Is there someone, a company, an organization for me that embraces who I am and what I believe in and would in fact support it, encourage it, right? Yeah, that's what started the pivot for me. That's fundamentally what started the pivot. I don't fit anymore, but is there a
Did
person?
that I'm curious because I know you came to leadership, the program, and then you actually jumped into advanced before you finished leadership. I remember the performance and leadership program, which you're one of the few people who have ever done that, right?
I need more. I need more
Yes,
of this.
right. So you did advanced skills. Is was that around the time that you were having this realization? Right.
Yeah. And what's remarkable, 2 years before that, before I came to Canada, Coach Academy, I had been exploring this idea of taking care of people through better leadership, through becoming a better leader. And what prompted that is this sense that I wasn't a great leader, that I, I I was too demanding, too prescriptive, too directed in my leadership style. I sensed that with the teams that I worked with and led. And it's not that there was anything critically wrong, but I knew it could be better. I wanted community, not just to lead or be the boss of someone. I wanted a community around me where we accomplish things to
Mm.
get. So I started looking at coaching as an answer. Actually, I started learning just questioning. How do I ask questions, right? And what are the roles of questions in my job? How can I use questions to create community? Which led me to exploring coaching. So I started learning coaching, what coaching was, 2 years before I got to Canada Coach Academy. And like many of the people who come on your podcast, when I got into the coaching with Canada Coach Academy, I thought I was well prepared for what it was. And the first week, the first blew my mind. And you know what my response was? Many of your participants said they were they questioned whether they were should be there, whether this was for them. Not me. It was the completely opposite. I said, "This is where I belong. This
Mm.
Oh, this I can embrace. This is where I belong.
Mhm.
What I need." I knew it like within a couple of weeks being on the program, and that made up my mind. That experience of going through Canada Coach Academy and learning coaching and starting to use it in the workplace, um, and seeing what happened in the culture I was in at the time, made up my mind about where I needed to go next.
Right. And so I didn't realize you were going through this and you were pivoting your career to aerospace. And then you called me one day and we get on the phone, I think, or something. We were on maybe Zoom because you wanted to tell me about your experience as you moved into this new team. Can you share that story about, the people and where they were at and you decided not to listen to the, I guess the profiles of the people that you were given. Would you mind telling that story? Do you remember that story?
I I I remember bits of it. It's been a while now. But this has been an experience that I've had repeatedly, where I decided not to listen to what I was being told about others, and this is what coaching has taught me fundamentally. I mean, I knew this before, but it really got nailed. It really became clear to me how beginner's mind can allow you to do things that just haven't couldn't be accomplished by any other means. So a bit of the story to elaborate. I got into this team. I was assigned the leadership over a particular team, and as part of that leadership, I was warned by a number of people. You've got this personality and this personality and this personality on the team, and you're going to have a challenge with getting the team together to accomplish what you need to accomplish. The beginner's mind took over, and I began to explore who these people were by meeting with them, understanding them, learning what drives them, asking coach questions to open them up. And what revealed itself was an environment, a prior environment where people were not listened to, where performance they wouldn't perform, they couldn't perform because they didn't feel like they were allowed to perform in the first place. And
Right.
so one of the transformations I made early on with that team is I created forums where all we did was talk and listen. I asked questions of the core team I was working with, and allowed them to talk without judgment. And then we utilized this. I utilized that to actually plan the remainder of the program that needed to be executed. And out of that came, just slowly but surely, ideas on how to execute a very aggressive schedule on a very complex technical program. And the people who provided the most value, the ones who then committed to achieving this, were the people who were thought of as in negative ways, right?
Hmm.
And I'll never forget that transformation. I'll never forget the lesson that I learned through that, which is never base a judgment on other people's, how other people talk about others. Start
Hmm.
with beginner's mind. Learn about them yourself.
Well, especially if you're going to approach in a very different way energetically and, communicatively with people, they will respond to you differently. So give them a chance to show themselves to you and not what they showed to others who maybe
Yes.
box them in or close them down. You also mentioned in that call, and I'm going to paraphrase, but you said something about how your skill as a leader was starting to be seen or recognized within the organization, which led to some opportunities for.
Yeah. So that's th- this particular initiative that I was asked to lead, um, was a crucial step in acquiring, in winning a future contract. So we had a really firm deadline. In fact, we had 4 months to accomplish what was absolutely impossible or deemed impossible. And so, well, the first, when we planned this effort and we created those connections, then I encountered this attitude across the board: this is absolutely possible, it can't be done. And so what I leaned into there was, again, my coach training. And I simply asked the team, um, okay, it can't be done, but what can be done? And that unlocked a dialogue of possibilities that became the
Mm,
foundational plan of the program. And that moment where we unlocked people started this dialogue within the organization about the difference, the me as some showing up very, very differently than other leaders have shown up. Um, so all of a sudden, I've got people coming to me. I know others have talked. People coming to me talking about my leadership style, and what I'm doing, differently. So that was interesting into itself. But what happened was we actually nailed the schedule. Not only did we nail the schedule, we accomplished in terms of our goals with our customer, which wasn't demonstrating we're the best, but demonstrating we add value to the customer. Right? We achieved that goal in spades, and we ended up winning a follow-on contract. When that follow-on contract came in, I was asked to take on the leadership of that team, and that's where I sit now on one of the biggest opportunities of my life, frankly.
Yeah. So I think before this conversation started on the recording, you said, I know people can achieve the impossible because I did, or something like that. Yeah,
Paraphrasing, I know people can achieve the impossible. Yeah.
yeah. So what is it? Like, what do you need to know about yourself? I know people, and because, we read these things, the obstacle is the way, and all the Steve Jobs quotes, and the why hire smart people and then tell them what to do. Like, we all hear these things, but practically speaking, what do you know to be true about you that got you here?
That I'm willing to question my own belief and belief systems. I'm
Hmm.
willing to question my own assumptions. And that's really hard, by the way. Like,
Yeah.
my gosh, leaning into, I'm fundamentally questioning and challenging what I believe about this or that is really, really difficult, because the first thing my mind says is, I don't want to change my mind on that belief because I'm really comfortable right where I'm sitting,
I
right?
know.
Um, and and um, and so that's it. That's it in a nutshell. I'm willing to question my own beliefs. Actually, there's another bit of a nutshell. There's another bit to this, which is, once I've given myself permission to question that belief, then I am open to feedback on that belief. And so I start talking to others about that belief. And so and getting feedback. And often, especially when it comes to believing about myself, people will look at me with tilted heads and going, "Are you kidding? Why do you believe that? Like, why on earth where does that come from?" Right? And that breaks it for me. Wow. Okay. Others don't see that. So why should I believe that?
Yeah, I think we share that. People have described me as collapsible, and it's that idea of I can really hold strong, but if you give me some, and I've asked good questions, and you give me some, like proof or evidence for something else, I can rebalance
Yeah.
and kind of collapse one side to rebuild the other. Um, and when the first person who said that to me, I was like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm like a wafer or waffler or whatever? Like, I don't know what the word is. And then I realized it's actually an asset, especially in business,
Yeah.
because things are changing, especially your world. Things are changing so rapidly
Exactly.
and intensely that if you stay stuck in one paradigm too like rigid, you'll miss an opportunity for sure. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And in fact, it's that willingness to question assumptions, and therefore the willingness to adapt, which was, I think, part of what the value that people see in me as a leader. It's not that I'm changing constantly, but I
Yeah.
structure things in a way that allows them to change in a relatively controlled way. Allow people to question things and then make the changes necessary without a lot of impediments, just enough resistance to prevent change from happening all the time. But nevertheless, once the change builds momentum, it can happen freely on its own. So
Well, that
right, I think the
yeah.
same in terms of the work I do. In terms of the work I do, and allow others the freedom to question their own assumptions as well, and the assumptions about what we're doing as well.
Well, the way that I remember you describing it in our call, it was that you had built strong frameworks that could support failure
Yes,
and enough flexibility for somebody to make decisions and test out their own theories because it was like you had their back. They
yes,
knew you had their back.
yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. Beautiful put. I forgot I framed it that way, but that's exactly what I did. I built frameworks. I
Yeah.
and then provide guidance on how to use those frameworks. And then I provide boundaries around decision making. So there are some decisions I must make, right? But the rest I let go of, and here right, give people the freedom to make those decisions on their own. So much so that in fact the framework allows us to plan the work we do in a way that people can volunteer for that work based on their strengths. And so no one is pre-assigned a piece of work on my team.
Mm.
There are
Oh, yeah.
obviously experts who are best suited for that particular work. So they naturally tend towards volunteering for that work. And and so there is guidance, and there's a bit of there's a framework piece in there for that. But in general, a framework with a backlog that allows people to pick up the work based on their strengths, motivations, desires, and especially their desire to learn and grow
And take risks,
and
right?
take risks, which is very hard to get people to do, by the way. So
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, and this might sound silly, but my son, he was taking his bike to the mall, and it was the first time. And he was going to get a haircut. I remember this happening. He was going to get a haircut, and he was, first time transacting in public alone and doing the big boy thing. And he looked at me and he goes, "Am I going to be okay?" And I said, "You know what? You are. And if you're not, I'm coming for you. Like, I'm going to be there." Like, one phone call, one text, and I'm on my way. So, no matter what, know that, and you'll be okay. And he felt little, like, physically better. I could see it. And I think that's what people need. It's this idea that, like, and I mean, I'm not saying anything goes. There has to be structure. Like, I loved the way that you put that. That's why I remembered it so clearly. The framework in place to catch people when they fall, and it's not going to implode the project. It's not going to
exactly.
implode the company or the
You got it.
team or the initiatives, right? It's just enough leeway to give them a sense of control and a sense of authority, and that you have that all important framework to keep it secure in the end.
Yeah,
And I feel like that example with my son is a little bit of like how people want to feel supported so that they can take the risks that they really do want to take and they feel confident about, but they're just it's the vulnerability of a first time, right?
yeah,
And the impact of that.
yeah, yeah. And there's another element to that. Um, and your example has absolutely nailed it beautifully. But the other thing I've learned, which was a very very hard lesson for me, very hard actually. Never criticize the failure. Never criticize the failure, right? And I used to be exactly like that as a leader. I would ask why I would criticize the outcome in an attempt to support people. I did it because I wanted to help people, but didn't ever realize the impact of what I was doing when I criticized the outcome in an attempt to teach them something. And so when you have a framework, leaders who are willing to allow people to take risk and let go of the reins, have the protection there, which there's multiple protections, including transparency on my programs. We can see all the work that's happening on my programs, the way
Mm.
that our systems allow us to do that. That means we can take a peek into things and assess where it's going in order to hand off any critical issues that, if they did occur, it would be damaging to the program, right? And then never criticize the outcome. Focus on what do we do next. right? Um, and I think that other element is critically important and allow people to sustain risk taking.
Yeah. Well, I like to say mistakes are mistakes, right? So that means take two.
Yeah.
It's like it's mistake one, mistake two. um, so I have some a quote or two here from your LinkedIn profile that I would love to read to you because I just thought it was so profound. And it goes well with what you're saying right now. You said the value of a contribution cannot be measured by its duration. Seize every opportunity, no matter how brief, to make an impact. Do you remember what you were talking about?
Oh, absolutely, I do.
Yes. Yeah.
I remember when that came to me and how taken aback I was by that realization, and the profoundness of that wasn't specifically about the article or the circumstances of that article. It was actually about work. And what I realized is that every single individual in my organization who contributes to my program is a key member of the team. If they don't do their job, nobody gets their job done.
Mhm.
And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I, I don't thank people enough for that short duration critical task that gets done that enable us to continue moving forward. And since that very moment, I reach out to everybody, no matter what their contribution is, and thank them equally for that contribution, regardless
Oh,
of how
wow.
long it took. And what
Yeah.
I've found is that creates the very community that's a contributor to creating the community that I want to live in the workplace,
Mhm.
and that I hope others want to live in too. I can see that community forming. Right, I saw that community formed in the last project I ran. I see that community forming in the project I'm running now as well, where even the littlest contribution is done in a way that you can just tell people enjoy contributing. They enjoy giving to the program. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. And the post that I'm referring to as well, you tell a beautiful story that got you to that realization. And that story is about, I think it's your daughter who's
Yeah,
on stage in an orchestra playing the oboe and her 5 second solo.
yeah,
And how I love how you say, what's she going to accomplish in 5 seconds? And then you realize the intensity of the experience of hearing her emerge from the orchestra. I and I mean, you can see on people's comments that it was really beautifully written, and you really got to I think the heart of what you just said about people's contributions, and the tiniest contribution makes the whole system work,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I still remember that moment sitting in the audience,
Yeah.
going through that experience. I remember every single second of that experience today. And I had to share it in that article. I
Yeah.
thought, like, so there's something behind that as well. Something that you taught,
Oh. Oh,
and
what did I teach you?
yeah, you in Canada Coach Academy. You know, it's listening.
Mm.
Period. I mean, I experience music through listening, but I'm not really listening, right? And that was a moment when listening was so clear. I was so inside that listening, because there was something about trying to understand what was going to happen, to understand the moment. It was so important to me at that moment in time that I felt what it was like to really truly listen, and I brought that moment into my coaching work, and into my leadership work as well, and that has fundamentally changed my life.
Wow. Yeah, listening is a big one. A lot of people point to that. A lot of people realize they were not listening before they came to the program to understand what true listening means and how the impact of it and how others feel when you really listen.
Yeah,
Um, it's a powerful. unspoken magic wand, right?
I had
So
no
that's great.
idea how powerful listening is in creating, again, the very community I'm looking to work within. And now I apply that to all of the presentation, public speaking work I do, the training work I do, both inside my organization and with STEM students as well. And I get all asked quite often, how did I develop those skills? And guess what I do? I point them right back to your
Oh,
organization.
do you? Oh my
I do.
goodness. Yay.
You really want to know
That's
how
so
to do
great.
this?
Yeah.
Learn to listen. Go speak to coach.
Go, yeah. That's so great. Well, and
So,
that brings me to my next quote because it fits right well. So you write 40 by 40 exclamation mark. The bold ambition to propel Canada's space industry to a 40 billion industry by 2040 is a thrilling prospect and inspiring challenge. Achieving this demands more than aspiration. It requires meticulous planning, unwavering commitment, and a keen focus on nurturing the essential ingredient for success, which is talent.
yes.
And then you talk about ways to do that. One of them is to inspire the next generation of space enthusiasts, initiatives aimed at fostering curiosity, creativity, and passion for space exploration must be championed in early education and then in higher learning educations. And then the other one that stood out to me was you also mentioned an ongoing commitment to skills development and lifelong learning within the existing workforce. Do you want to speak more to that?
Which part?
All of it.
Uh, All of it. There's a lot I could say about this. So let me go back to first of all, before I directly answer that. Remember, I was talking about the that sense of belonging or not belonging, and so when I started looking for a company to belong to, I realized that my core values of continuous learning, of supporting STEM and youth, in helping others transition or realize a career was of critical importance to me. I needed to live within an organization that supported that because that's what I'm going to do. That's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to do that with my team. I'm going to support their learning and their growth. I'm going to set aside project time for them to do that. I'm going to facilitate the training of others. I'm going to teach myself so that my team can be taught in real time what needs to be done or skill that they need in order to do their job. That was so crucial for me that I, for an entire 2 years, didn't apply to a single company in the space industry. I learned instead about the space companies in Canada in particular, and I started to identify those companies that had two things going for them. One, an attitude of of um, of propelling growth in their employees. One that I could readily see that when I talked to people, they would talk to me about their experiences inside the company in that regard. In other words, I was validating that what they said was actually what they were doing by speaking to people in the industry. The second is a company that is committed to growth, that has such big ambitions when it comes to growth, that the only way you can actually grow the company is through learning, through through helping young people identify themselves as having a career in space industries. So through helping university students transition into the space industry, through ongoing learning on our teams, through ongoing learning in the organization. And when I had done that research and I saw a job requisition come out with these words, and in fact, the company's name was not on this job requisition. It was through a third party that advertised it. And I said, that's the company I need to belong to. And I know exactly who that is because I recognized the patterns in their language.
Oh, wow.
I applied for the job, got an interview the next morning, landed the job a week later.
Wow.
And and because I knew that's where I belonged. So I knew what to talk about. And
Yeah.
and coaching taught me to flip the interview. Let's get them talking about their passion.
Yes.
What do you want to do?
Do you know a lot of people have told me that recently, that they've been
Right?
nailing their job interviews. I was like, I love
Exactly.
it.
I'm terrible at job interviews, but coaching taught me, well, flip the dialogue, get them to talk. Anyway, so I landed exactly where I needed to be in the company I wanted to and want to belong to and know I can contribute because they're growing and they believe in learning. So I get to do what I love to do every single day. Okay. Which means now that I'm working to establish, I moved, had to move cities. I'm working to establish
Yeah.
my presence in the STEM community again, to start talking to young people about careers in space, the growing space industry, how they may fit in. And one of the biggest things I have to change, not I, we in the industry has to change, is that actually this is no longer a specialized industry. You can actually have a career in aerospace, in developing space systems, and products. It's no longer the isolated to the specialists and the brightest people in the world, right? The scientists and so on and so forth. So shifting that perspective on you actually can have a career in space as an engineer, administrator, as a program manager, and so forth, right? And so I'm building my presence in the STEM communities to actually talk about those things to students. I'm engaging university students in two capacities. One is supporting capstone projects. So I've got my engineering team sponsoring capstone projects of university students in Calgary, Toronto, and Ottawa, um, so that those students can get the best expertise in the world from the space industry, advising them on their capstone project. And those capstone projects are aligned with what we're trying to create inside our company as well. So that's the first one. Second, guess what? I get to subcontract universities to do the work. So we're creating foundational capabilities.
Yeah.
Universities are creating foundational capabilities for us that are going to enable our missions in the future, and we get to work with those people every day. And I have no bounds put upon in terms of
Mm.
engage and how many teams I engage. So that's another way of facilitating this growth. Building up expertise within the universities is highly relevant to our organization. And then guess what? We offer them jobs, right? As we a company that they're ready-made skill sets. I've taken on the job of training my teams and other teams that are doing related things. And I create training programs, and I've been given the money and the freedom to the freedom with boundaries um,
Yeah.
to train these people. So I actually spend about 4 hours a month actually training teams within our organization. And it's I've started with leadership because I think that's the foundational piece we need. We need a transformation in leadership to facilitate the growth. And so I'm talking about leadership in a growing space industry and how we need to show up, how we need to transform, how we need to train ourselves to
Hmm.
to actually lead the transition in the space industry, right? Plus other initiatives. I think I've gone on long enough about this, but I believe I've made my point and answered the question.
Yes. No, I mean, I love, not that you've gone on too long, but I think that your point is so good. It's so good. Like this idea of cultivating the talent and, and inviting it early on and, piquing curiosity. I
Yes.
love that. And that, that open mind, beginner's mind approach to
Yeah.
recruitment.
Right.
There you go.
People curiosity. It's probably one of the biggest challenges actually in doing all of this is getting people to be curious about
Mm.
things. But what I do is once I see that seed of curiosity, I latch onto it and I know where to focus my time and energy and which people to focus on in order to grow that seed and in order to grow that seed. Then there is one more element that I think is critical. Like me, I pivoted from the defense industry. The two industries are actually quite similar, right?
Mhm.
And they both are classified as aerospace industries. So the pivot for me wasn't that difficult. We're talking about key environmental differences between the two industries, but the foundational engineering expertise that I had and the expertise I developed outside of the defense industry allowed me to pivot successfully. The reality is a growing space industry, growing at the size we're talking about here, needs people to come in from the commercial industries. And so I'm actually talking to people who want to make that pivot into the space industry from the commercial industry and helping them identify what things they need to do and what they need to learn in order to make a successful pivot. And those people who I see making that pivot, right? I then passes them on to our company HR team in order to evaluate further. Because growth mindset is the key to this. If you're
Yeah.
willing to be brave and courageous and take a leap and learn what's needed, you can be successful in the space industry. You absolutely can.
Yeah, and you also need that all important element of believing you can change, as Carol Dweck had identified in her book, right? This mindset is all about believing you can and
Yeah,
then doing it, being willing to do it, right?
exactly. And I
Yeah.
use coaching for that as well because I can't change their mindsets. They are the only ones who can
Yeah.
do that. I found coaching an effective tool in helping people shift their own mindsets.
Yeah. Wow, it's so good. I'm so like enjoying this conversation. I don't want it to end, but I know you have other things to do, John. So I guess the last question I'm going to ask, well, two more questions. One is, um, what is the opportunity for leader as coach in your mind for any industry, any profession? Just a leader coach approach to leadership.
Yeah, what is the opportunity for leader as coach? I still see. So I'll talk first of all what an impediment is. I don't think that is well understood. Leader as coach, and in fact, I don't like using the word. I avoid using the word coach in my leadership work because it creates this. Well, I get a funny reaction from people,
Yeah.
um, but so there's that caveat. But irrespective, having a coach mindset and having those coach skills and even being able to coach opens up huge opportunities. One of those opportunities is to create a community of leaders, um, a community of leaders, a community. And once you can create that community, what becomes possible is like I've seen miracles happen. People overcome problems that were insurmountable. Think about things in new ways that make them possible. The opportunity is to create a community of people who can work together and move, like just do impossible things. Right. And for that reason, I firmly believe I'm the impossible problem solver. Not because I can solve the problem, but because I create the community that can solve those
Yes.
problems. And
Yeah.
I had a most recent example of one where a 10-year-old problem that hadn't been solved got solved in 2 weeks
Wow.
because of that community, because we
Yeah.
listened, because we allowed people to act, and
Yeah.
because we had a framework that kept them safe. Right.
Yeah.
So
Oh
that's what.
yeah. Wow. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that coaching does, and I agree with you that the word coach, because it's so misunderstood and it's used like as in the same context as mentorship, or even as I've seen it used in the same context as consulting. So coach is a very different lane in our world or my world. But I agree that, so I like to call it, skillful language for connection. Like I've looked at ways to like craft, what I'm talking about, which is, even the language of influence or the language of inclusion. Like, that's what I believe about coaching.
Yeah.
So when you talk about inviting all the voices of community in, of course, you'll be smarter. You'll have different perspectives. Diversity will also give you more perspective. And, there's just so much value in that. And I have witnessed in my career working with leaders in not well, education, yes, but in corporate, mostly from the teams that are being, brought into training, they feel underutilized. They
Yeah.
feel like they have not even explored sometimes even a tenth of their capabilities or potential. And so if they're feeling that way, it's because they really haven't had a chance to voice what they know, what they care about, what they're interested in, what they're curious about, and all those things. So yeah, I totally get it. My
I am
next
a
and
bit of
final,
a
yeah, go ahead.
I in that regard, giving people the opportunity and space to show up how they want to show up and do what they want to do is always a culture shock within the organizations I work with. But the outcome of that is teams. I've said it before, but I'll reinforce it because this is real. This isn't just you know um, uh, yeah, it's real. The outcomes are incredible. Like we do things that people thought we couldn't do, right? Anyway,
Yeah.
I've made my point. Next question. Sorry.
Okay. Final question. It's the question I've been asking all my guests at the end of this. You might have heard it before, but and I love it. So if you had one question, preferably a what question, starts with the word what. If you had one question for the universe that you could ask and receive an answer for, what would it be?
This one's very clear, and I ask it quite often to people, and the results are always unexpected and profound. What do you want?
Right. So good. It's so clean and perfect.
It,
What do you
it,
want? Yeah.
what do you want? Right. So
Yeah.
you've told me all of this, right? But what do you want?
Yes. You
And it
nail it
really
down. Yeah.
focuses the conversation on what
Yeah.
specific problems need to be solved, what dreams you have, where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
What do you want?
Yeah. Oh, good one. Love it. Well, thank you so much for your time. This was so stimulating and fun. I just really loved our conversation, and I know it's going to bring so much value to a lot of people who are listening who, from different levels. I'm not even going to start like pointing to all the different topics that were touched, but um, if people want to get in touch with you, we will leave your contact information in the show notes. But do you want to tell them what's the easiest way to connect with you?
Generally, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. You can drop me a message, and I absolutely guarantee you I will respond. So
Wonderful. Well, thank you again. So fun.
thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share my stories. I really appreciate it. Take care.